Who are you when you are not chasing the numbers? When you are not defining your success by the number of streams, likes, or follows that you have? This is a real slippery slope that most artists and pretty much anybody who is using digital platforms falls into. And it's time to break free of the numbers so that you can really take control of your artistry, of your career, of your music, and show up in a way that deeply connects with your fans. When you're continually chasing metrics, this is when things get really tricky. As I said, it's like this slippery slope because we start to pay so much more attention to the numbers that it begins to dictate the way that we show up and express ourselves. And when we start to alter our expression in a way to acquiesce to a trend or the algorithm or what we perceive people want or think that they want from us, we lose touch with the essence of who we are as artists. And your artist identity is literally the most important piece of the puzzle when it comes to marketing yourself. Having that strong, clear connection with your artist identity is what makes your marketing actually effective. So when we're in the rat race of numbers and we're comparing everything that we do to these data points that definitely have some useful insights for us, but when that becomes the basis of how we create and how we show up, it is not surprising that we lose touch with these parts of ourselves. And when we lose touch with that identity, it's so much harder to connect with people. And it's so much harder to create this feeling and this sensation with people that they're in this journey together, that they're connected with what you're doing. And it's actually honestly harder for them to connect with your music because they don't have a sense of what it is or who you are because there's a part that's being left out. And I will say, when we get stuck in this cycle, and I've seen this so many times with artists, the burnout, the resistance to social media, and all of that, I think is driven a lot by the fact that we get kind of caged by the numbers and our minds get lost in sort of these like performance metrics that we have to meet, and we lose touch with who we are. And when we lose touch with who we are, yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah, we start to resist having to do the thing because it doesn't feel like it's an expression of us. So it's really this vicious cycle. When we get stuck in the numbers and we're putting ourselves in that box, in that cage, it's really a vicious cycle where we basically dampen who we are or separate from who we are, which creates this feeling inside that is like frustration, or it feels inauthentic, it feels cringy, and all these things. Well, yeah, it's because you're performing for someone else's metrics, whether it's the algorithm or it's people in your audience. And what we want to try to do, and this is really a basis of what synthesis is about, is to bring and like close this gap between where we understand data, where we understand how platforms function and algorithms function, but we also respect, honor who we are as artists, and make it our goal and our job to show up in a way that synthesizes all of who we are, that takes in the data points, brings it into strategy, but in a way that is actually going to amplify your artist identity. That's actually going to allow you to be more of you and be seen as more of you, because when you do that, this is actually when the numbers are going to shift in the direction you want them to go. Oftentimes, if we keep cycling through like trends and trying to get numbers up and numbers up, we lose touch of ourselves, right? And then we create that burnout, we create that frustration, and the numbers will start to probably trend down at some point, right? And that's so frustrating, right? Because you're pouring all your energy, all your effort into doing this thing, but you're not actually seeing the results you want. So I think if you're in this situation now, like if this is really landing for you and you feel like, man, yeah, this frustration, I invite you to spend some time to really think about how much of your creation with social media, how much of your marketing is driven by numbers and driven by the desire to get likes, the desire to get follows. And I'm not saying that those are bad things. Yes, you want to grow those numbers. That's great. Of course, you want to reach more people with your music. That's not a bad thing. But in order to do that, there's moments when we have to pull back, like zoom out and see how are we behaving and how are we putting forward our content. And is this a true reflection of who you are as an artist? Does it actually feel like you when you show up? This to me is the most important metric, the metric that truly matters. And the metric is you. Are you behind what you're creating and putting out there? Do you feel like this is a representation of you? That metric should be where you start always. No matter what area or moment you're in, marketing moment you're in, or whatever. Like, this is what you should be starting with, is what is this metric within you that allows you to be you and show up as you, and you start there. And then you look at data, and then you look at the metrics and the numbers, and what are they pointing to, and what are they saying, and what can you glean from that that can actually help you amplify who you are, not smash it down more and be someone that you're not, create things that you hate creating, because that energy is felt. We talk about that a lot here. That energy is felt. People pick up on it. They recognize when you're putting yourself in a box, right? How often is it when you put up a post that you're kind of just like, oh, whatever, like, I'm over it. I'm just sharing what's real. And that ends up performing really well. Well, duh, it's you being you. And ultimately, this is going to be the key indicator of a quality, good strategy for you, is to know whether or not you're actually showing up as who you are. And so when you chase these numbers, and when you're out there trying to like drive yourself to create this benchmark of success of likes, follows, and all of that, this is where it gets frustrating. And ask yourself, who would you be without the numbers? What would you create if the numbers didn't matter? How would you show up? What message would you share? Even like what kind of music would you create? Because this is a real thing in the industry right now. Music and the culture and the industry is being shaped by things like social media and marketing, because people get so locked in to having to think they have to create for other people that they lose touch with artistry in general. And I really feel like it's our responsibility as artists, as creators, as people in the industry, to not allow these platforms, these metrics, these numbers to dictate what we create. Because we then lose what I think is the intrinsic value of expression. That value is not measured by anything outside of us. Our artistic value, our music's value, the worth of it can't be measured by any of these things. Like, you're literally, as an artist, you're tapping into the intangible, right? You're tapping into something that is inexplicable, people cannot explain. And that is an incredibly beautiful and powerful position to be in as an artist. Instead of allowing these tools and their numbers to affect us, and we can really harness these tools and their potential and their power, we get to shape not only our careers, we get to shape the industry and the culture in a way that is so important. And so this is a really worthy moment to spend looking at, where are you chasing the numbers? Where are you giving them meaning when there really shouldn't be any meaning to them at all? And how can you create a strategy that is based on you and your expression as a musician, as an artist first, being artist forward essentially, instead of here's the number, here's the data, here's what works, here's the trend, here's the next big thing that I need to do to go viral. It's like there has to be a synthesis here. There has to be an integration point, because we can't lose touch with who we are as artists. We have to use these platforms for something greater and something bigger. We have to break out of these numbers as a benchmark of success. So this is what we got today on the Daily Drop. It's time to break free from the numbers. It's time to let your strategy be informed first by who you are as an artist and a musician, and allow data and numbers to support you in finding places that you can further amplify your music and your message. If this episode of the Daily Drop landed with you, make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you share it with a fellow artist in your community, and we will see you next time.